Hello everyone. I'm really glad that you're back on my channel. And perhaps, if you've been following the previous stories, if you've listened to the journey of Deep and CEO James through each frame, then surely, at some point, you've asked yourself a question. That, what we see on the screen, those eyes, those emotions, those stories that seem so complete, are they really the same as what happens in real life? Are they just things that are built, arranged, or are they part of a real story, existing behind the scenes, that not everyone can see? And today, we're going to look back at everything, not from the perspective of a film, not what has been told through a script, but from another angle, more real, closer, and touching emotions in a very different way. Because, behind the images you've seen, it's not just acting, not just content, but a real-life love story. A story, not perfect, not easy, not as smooth as people often imagine, but a story deep enough, real enough, and meaningful enough to make people think. James, a name many people know, is not just a character, not just a familiar image in videos. Behind that is a real person. His real name is Quynh, a young man born and raised in circumstances that were far from easy. He is from the Hmong ethnic group, a minority group, living mainly in the mountainous regions of northern Vietnam, a place where life does not offer many advantages, not many choices, and not many opportunities for someone to easily change their path. There, many people grow up, then start families early, leave school early, accept a life that has already been shaped for them. But Quynh did not choose that path. He did not accept stopping just because of his circumstances. He did not want his life to revolve only around what had already been arranged, while those around him chose a familiar direction. He remained persistent in pursuing education, persistently chasing what he believed could change his life. It was not an easy choice, not a path that received support, but he kept going, step by step, slowly, but without stopping. There was a time when he chose to pursue acting, not for glamour, not for fame, but because he wanted to tell stories, wanted to stand in front of the camera, to express things that before he never had the chance to show. But that path was not filled with opportunities. There was no ready recognition, and it was far from easy. He failed, not once, not twice, but many times. Attempts, rejections, moments when he thought he was close, but then had to start over again. Those things, not everyone saw, not everyone understood, but those experiences shaped the person he became. And Deep, whose real name is Quynh, a girl not unfamiliar to Quynh, not a chance meeting, not a relationship starting from zero, but a connection that had existed for a long time, since their school days, when everything was still simple, when emotions were just gentle feelings, no calculations, no pressure. A relationship very pure. But like many other stories, not everything that begins beautifully can reach the end. Between them, there were distances, barriers, from family, from circumstances, and from life itself, gradually pulling them in different directions. They could not stay together, not because the feelings were gone, but because they could not overcome what lay ahead. After that, Deep's life took another turn. She entered a marriage, a choice that may have come from many reasons. But like many people, she chose to begin a new journey. And then, she had a little daughter. Her name is Nee. A name simple to hear, but carrying a lot of meaning. Not just a name in life, but an important part of her journey. What's special is, even when appearing in YouTube videos, the little girl still keeps that name unchanged, the same, as a way to preserve the truth, to keep what belongs to real life within the frames, within the stories that sometimes make it hard to distinguish what is real and what is not. And from here, the stories are no longer just about the past, but begin to connect with the present, with what is happening now, and with things that no one can predict yet. But life has never been a straight path. It's not that starting with hope will lead to a perfect ending. And it's not that just because you try, you can hold on to everything you want to keep. Life sometimes turns in directions that even the people involved are not prepared for. Deep's marriage did not last as people once believed. There was no perfect ending, no so-called happiness fulfilled. It was simply a journey that had to stop, quietly, without noise, but leaving so many things behind. And from that moment, she became a single mother, alone, carrying everything, alone, going through days that were far from easy. No one beside her to share, no one to lean on, only herself and a small child, the only reason to keep going. The hardships are not always visible. Some days, it's just accumulated exhaustion. Some moments are thoughts with no one to share them with. And there are times when it's the looks from others. Those looks, not spoken out loud, but enough to be felt. Pressure doesn't only come from life itself, but also from how society sees things. Yet Deep still chose to move forward. No complaints, no explanations, just quietly living, quietly raising her child, quietly doing everything she could so her child could have a better life. Then one day, after all those years of wandering and striving, Quynh returned. No longer the young man from before, no longer the dreams that hadn't taken shape, but a person who had gone through many experiences, who had tried, who had failed, who had started over many times, and carried within him things that cannot be seen with the eyes. Their reunion was not arranged. There was no preparation, just a coincidence, but enough to change everything. He met Deep again, but the girl in front of him was no longer the same as in his memories. No longer the girl with simple emotions. No longer those carefree days. But a woman who had gone through so much. Who had lived through phases that not everyone could fully understand. And beside her was little me. A presence impossible to ignore. An important part of her life. Something that anyone who comes close must face. There are emotions that seem to have fallen asleep. Seem to have been left behind long ago in the past. No longer strong. No longer clear. But when they met again, everything slowly came back to life. Not loudly. Not rushed. No need to name it. Just a familiar feeling. A connection. And it is exactly because of that simplicity that many people once thought it was just a constructed set. A place prepared in advance for filming purposes. But in reality, it is completely different. The house you often see is not somewhere unfamiliar. Not a space created just to play a role. It is actually Deep's home. The place where she lives. Where every day, life continues as usual. A place where there is no clear boundary between real life and what is captured through the camera. Because of that, what you see does not feel distant. Does not feel artificial. On the contrary, it feels very real. Very close. Very similar to what anyone could encounter in their own life. The mother who appears in the videos, the one many people call Mrs. Quynh, is not just a character, not a role, but in fact, she is Deep's real mother. A real mother. A woman who has always been part of her life. The looks, the gestures, the words do not need acting, do not need to be learned, because everything is natural, everything is genuine. And in those everyday scenes, the father who appears is also not arranged, not a selected character, but Quyenh's biological father. A father who exists in his life, bringing with him something very real. No need to perform. No need to pretend. Just being himself is enough. All of those things, when placed together, create a very special feeling. Because what you see is not acting. Not something created just to tell a story, but real life. Simply being recorded, selected, and told again in a way that is softer, more subtle, and touches emotions more deeply. Their love is also not a story that begins with perfection. Not a journey where everything is smooth. Not a relationship that from the beginning was supported by everyone. On the contrary, it is a journey that had to go through many things. Prejudices, opinions from others, words that are not easy to hear, and even opposition from family members, especially from Quyyenh's family. Because, from many people's perspective, not everyone can easily accept a woman who has gone through a marriage, who has experienced brokenness, and is raising a child. That is not just the story of two people, but the story of an entire family. A choice that does not only affect the present, but also brings many consequences afterward. And because of that, opposition was unavoidable. Doubts were understandable. But Quynh did not choose to step back. He did not choose the easier path. Did not choose to avoid. Did not choose to let go. Instead, he chose to stay. To stay, even when everything was unclear. To stay, even without support. To stay, with everything he believed in. He did not try to persuade with words. Did not make grand promises. Did not try to explain too much. But chose another way. He chose to prove it. To prove it through actions. Through the way he treats deep. Through the way he cares for little me. Through the way he patiently stays. Day by day. Those things are not always seen immediately. Not always recognized right away. But over time, everything begins to change. Gradually, the family starts to understand. Not through explanations, but through what they see. They see sincerity. They see patience. They see a person who does not leave, does not change, does not waver. And most importantly, they see the love he has for deep in me. Not something that can be faked. Not something that can last without sincerity. No need to say too much. No need to prove with grand gestures. Just by looking at the way he cares. The way he stays. The way he is present in their lives. Is enough to understand. Enough to feel. Enough to believe. That this is not just a choice. But a real, genuine love. At present. After everything they have been through. After the moments when it felt like everything could come to an end. After the times when each of them had to go through so much on their own. They are still together. Not a temporary choice. Not a rushed decision. But a journey that continues. Through patience. Through understanding. And through everything they have experienced together. They are building a life together. Not with grand gestures. Not with distant plans. But starting from the smallest things. Daily routines. Simple conversations. Moments that seem ordinary, yet carry so much meaning. They create content together. Not to build a perfect image. Not to create something overly different. But to share. To share what they have. To share what is happening. To share a life. Not perfect, but real. And that authenticity touches the hearts of many people. Because not everyone can see themselves in distant stories. But it is easy to recognize yourself in simple things, in familiar emotions, in moments that don't need to try to be special. Quynh and Deep are no longer standing as people who once missed each other. No longer incomplete memories. But the present. The days that are happening now. The choices that are being held on to. Quynh has proposed to Deep. Without extravagance. Without needing to create something grand. Just a proposal. Said at the right time. A moment. When both of them understood. This is no longer a beginning. But a continuation. And both of them are waiting. Not for something luxurious. Not for a grand wedding. But for a wedding. A wedding. Warm enough. Peaceful enough. Meaningful enough. To mark a new chapter. After everything they've been through, what they have now is not just love, not just emotions, but understanding. An understanding that does not come from words, but from going through hardships together, from moments when no words are needed, yet they still understand each other. It is companionship, not being there when things are easy, but choosing to stay when things are no longer easy. And above all, a family, not just a concept, not just a title, but a place, with connection, with acceptance, with presence, in the most complete way. And perhaps, what makes this story special is not because it is like a movie, not because it is told in an emotional way, but because, in real life, it still exists. It is still happening. It is still beautiful. In a very real way. Not perfect. Not flawless. But deeply human. And because of that, it makes people believe. Believe that some relationships, even after going through so much, can still return. Believe that some feelings, even if once unfinished, can still continue. Believe that not every story needs to begin at the right time to reach a beautiful ending. And what about you? After everything that has been shared, what do you think about the story of Quynh, Deep, and Little Nee? Is love strong enough to overcome prejudices like these? Do what they have now make you believe more in simple things